Alright folks, I'm going to do a couple coding examples to kind of go over the things that we already talked about. Now remember, whenever I do a lab, I set it up this way. And I'm all set. And you can tell by my voice, the summer cold thing is not getting any better. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is do a countdown with a while statement, or I'm sorry, a while loop. So first I'm going to create a variable. It's going to be an integer type, and it's going to be countdown. Then we're going to send out to the screen and say how many greetings do you want? And then cin is going to be the countdown. So we have a variable countdown, and then we ask them how many greetings do they want, and then we make that number the countdown. So now we're going to make our first while loop. So while, and now we need that Boolean statement. You know, while something is true, keep doing this. So we're just going to do while countdown is greater than 0. And then we need our curly brackets. So now, as long as the countdown is greater than 0, it's going to do whatever we put in here. And we're going to do cout hello. And then remember, we need to modify the count number so that we increment down. So countdown equals, oh, really? Countdown minus 1. There you go. I like myself all night. I don't know why I'm like this. What do you call that? The OCD in me. All right, and then we're going to do cout end line. And then we're going to do another cout. Oh my gosh. So we've created a variable, asked a question to fill in the variable, and then we're going to run, hellos until the variable hits is greater than 0, or I'm sorry, is less than 0. And then each time we run it, we remove 1 from the countdown. So let's run this and see what it looks like. Wait for it. Oh, my antivirus kicked off again. Sorry about that. Let me fix that. Alright, I love Avast, but sometimes it's a little too much. Alright, let's do it again. Alright, how many greetings do we want? We want 5. So, hello, 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 hello. So we got 5, that's all. And how many greetings do I want? What if I want minus 1? I don't get any. So remember, you always want to test your stuff to make sure it works with normal input, but you also want to test your stuff to make sure it works with not normal input. So that's a simple while loop. And basically you have the loop maker, while, do while, or for. Then you have some kind of Boolean statement that's saying, hey, as long as this is true, keep running this. And then you have the stuff that you want to run. Alright, let's say I want to change this into a do while statement. So all I'd have to do is go up here to the top and remove this. Oh, you know what? I should just grab that. Let's just cut that out. And then here we'll put do. And then we still want this to run in the loop. But at the end of the loop, we paste that. And now we need the semicolon at the end. And now it's the exact same thing. So the while loop and the do while loop are pretty much the same. But the do loop will always run, the do while loop will always run at least once. So if we go back to watching it, so if I put in -1, I still get that first hello, because that first hello runs, the loop runs before I get to the Boolean statement. So it always runs at least once regardless of user input. And then if I put in 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then it runs normal. So make sure you keep that in mind when you're doing your loops. Is it always going to run once? If it is, you can do a do while. If there are times when you do not want it to run, then you want to just do a while statement. All right, I'm going to get a bit more complicated. Let me comment this out and send it all away. All right, I'm going to create an integer, and it's going to be number of items. And I'm going to create a second integer value called count. And then I'm going to create calories for item. And then I'm going to create total calories. So remember, don't forget, when we're declaring our variables, we don't have to declare just one at a time. You can declare multiple ones. All right. So then I'm going to do a cout, because I will need user input, and I'm going to say, hey, how many items did you eat today? And then we're going to do a cin. And that's going to be our number of items. And then we're going to start with 0 calories. So we want to zero everything out. So total. Oh my gosh, don't tell me why I did that. Total calories equals 0. And then count equals 1. And then we're going to cout, enter the number of calories in each of the space Oh, I'm such a terrible typist. Again, I like space. So now it's going to say enter the number of calories in each of the 5 items eaten, or whatever they type in. So number of items is actually going to show here. So we're just popping a variable in the middle of our sentence that's going to come out to the screen. Now we need our while loop, because we can keep adding for each item that they have. So we're going to do while count, and we want to keep incrementing that up, is less than or equal to number of items, do the stuff in curly braces. And in curly braces, we're going to have a cin, and it's going to say calories for item, plus we're putting an S on there. So what we want our loop to do is to keep adding the total calories from each item into the total. So we take whatever they inputted, enter the number of calories for each of the items. So let's say they have 3 items. Then the while loop comes up, and the count is 0, but the number of items is 3. So it's going to ask, say, so I'm going to put in, 3 numbers, and then each number is going to be calories per item. Then each calorie per item gets added to the total calories. Then I can do cout. Ta-da. And I'm all done. So what we did is we created 4 variables, and then we asked them how many items did they eat, and then that becomes our number of items. And then we set calories and count, calories to 0, count to 1, and then we asked them enter the number of calories with each of the items. And then each item that they enter gets added to the total calories, and at the end we say your total calories eaten today is, and then the number of total calories. So let's see how this runs. So how many items did you eat today? Today I ate 3 items. Enter the number of calories. So the first one was 300, the second one was 100, and then I had a Big Mac and it was 500. And then boom, 900. So you can see how those loops work. They're relatively easy to do. Just don't forget, whenever you're doing multiple, or you need to get multiple things done, like in your lab 3, you need to generate numbers or go through the numbers 1 through 100. And then you need to check those numbers to see which one is prime. A lot of people don't really read the instructions and they try to do it all in one loop. And that doesn't make sense. So you need 2 loops. You need a loop inside a loop. You can also have other things inside your loop, maybe like a switch statement or an if statement or an if else. So let me comment that out. And let me do another one. So I'm going to do integer number sum equals 0 and count equals 0. So you see here I created 3 different variables. One of them I did not assign a value, and 2 of them I did assign a value. So don't forget, you can mix that stuff up. It doesn't have to all be its own line. Alright, cout. Enter 4 negative numbers. And then I can create my loop. So while, oh actually I wanted to add it first, is greater than or equal to 4, do this. Now, whenever you see these loops, sometimes you see people that do their loops like that. And that's perfectly acceptable too. For me, I'm just a little bit, I don't know if it's OCD or what, but I prefer mine like that. Alright, so whatever they number, or whatever they enter, like we said enter 4 negative numbers, we need a cin to take the input, and that's going to equal number. And then, if number is greater than or equal to 0, didn't do equals. Do this. I know, it's just the, again, OCD in me. Don't let me screw that up. 1 space. Try to make sure that you guys can see this all on the screen. Alright, let me just fix this. do that. Let me just get this in here and I'll explain what I'm doing. Alright, and here I needed that, but not that. Alright, that fixed all that. And then finally, why do I keep doing pipe? And then something to get out of that. And then the end of those brackets. And the OCD in me makes me space it out. And then I want to go out of the loop and do another C out. Let me a space there. Oh, I do need a space. Woo! Oh, I forgot that little puppy. Alright, so what we're doing here is we're having them enter 4 negative numbers. And the first thing we want to do is we want to change the count and add 1 to the count, because the count starts with 0, so we make it 1. And as long as it's less than or equal to 4, we put it in there. So what I could have done, I could have had count start at 1 and then did count plus plus. But instead I did count equals 0 and I added 1 to the count right here to make it the first count. So again, either way works. And I hope you understand that. And again, I could have done count equal 1, count plus plus, and that would have worked. But we're just going to do it this way, just to show you different ways of doing things. So we want to do 4 negative numbers. If a number is less than 0, if the number is greater than 0, they're going to get this error message: error, positive number, or 0 was entered as the whatever the count was, and then the number input ends with the number 5, the number was not added in. So that's just really an error message in case I put in a value that's a positive number or 0. And then we're going to add the numbers together, and then we're going to sum that stuff up. So to look at it when it runs, assuming I didn't screw this up, so enter 4 negative numbers. So -1, -2, and then I'm going to type in 3, and then I get my error. Error, positive number or 0 was entered as the number. And I don't know why I keep putting the count in there. Input ends with the 3 number. The number was not added. So I need to remove that count statement in there 4 times. I don't know why that was in the example. And then -3 is the sum of the first 2 numbers. Because I only counted the 2 numbers. So let me clean up that error message. I'll just leave it. But you get the idea. So you can have other things inside your loops like this. And you can count your loops, either starting from 0 and add 1 to the count, or at 1 and then add 1 to the count after the loop runs. So lots of different ways of doing things. Again, in this class, I'm more concerned that you can code and get the end result, and I don't care how you got there. I don't care how clean your code works or how efficient it is. Just focus on getting the job done. Once you get it done, if you still got time, like let's say you get your lab done on Friday, you can still sit down Saturday and look and see, hey, what can I do to make this more efficient, things like that. Because again, in the real world, we need our code to be more efficient. We need it to take up less memory space, things like that. Which is why some of these software companies like Microsoft suck so bad, because you install Windows 7 or Windows 8, and the first thing it does is suck up a gig of RAM with a bunch of applications and stuff you don't even need. All right, I'm going to show you an example of a multipath if statement. So in this case, again, this one's already done, so I'm just going to walk you through it. So we create a variable named grade, and we set the value to 0, and then we create a character for the letter grade. Then we ask them to enter their grade, and then that becomes the the variable grade. And then, if grade is greater than or equal to 90, the grade letter is going to be A. If it's greater than 80. So if we start at greater than 90 and above, that answers anything from 90 or above. So then when we get down here to 80 or above, we wouldn't have to worry about a 91 being added into there, because it would have already been filtered out by the first if statement. So a lot of times when we're building these statements, as long as you think about it logically and you start from top down, you won't have any problems. But if you start mixing things in there, you'll have issues. So else if letter grade equals 80 or above, there's a B. Else if, that you get the idea. Then we finally get else. So that else's are everything else has this is F. And then depending on their grade, here we do a switch statement. So depending on what their letter grade is, if it's A, we're going to send out excellent. If it's B, almost dude. C, average. You just made it. And so that's an example of a case statement. Now, theoretically, in this case statement here, this last line should have been default. But you can do it without the default if you want to. So this would still run. So all right, that's good enough. Let me run it real quick just to show you. So enter your grade. Let's say my grade is I really suck in the class. I got a 45. So your grade is an F. You did not even try. But so you get the idea. So that's a good one to show you what a multipath if-else statement looks like, and then how the switch command is used, and how you combine different things inside your program. And then don't forget, just because your book or the program says it needs a default at the end, doesn't necessarily mean it needs a default at the end. For best practices, that should have been a default. But this case thing here, it still works, and it works fine. So again, at this point, just make it work. That's 70%. After that, we can work on the rest of the stuff. All right, now I want to give you a little hint for Lab 3. This is how I solved it, and I'm not showing you everything. I'm just showing you, I've got 2 for loops nested here. So I have one for loop, then another for loop inside that. So I did integer, so I created the value, so integer number equal 3, because I think the lab says, do the prime number starting with 3. And then I did run this loop as long as number is less than 101. But what I should have done is as long as number greater than or equal to 100. So you can do, as long as it's less than 101, or you can do greater than or equal to 100, because the lab asks you to just go to 100. And then I need to add 1 to my number. So that adds that. And then I use this one, integer x equals 2, and then if the number is less than x, or less than 2, and then I add that. So I put 2 loops in there, and then inside this loop I would do some kind of formula to determine whether the number can be divided by x, which in this case x is 2. And the second loop keeps running as long as x is smaller than the number. But if the number is 3 through 100, x will always be smaller than that number. So this will always run as long as the top statement is running, if that makes sense. So if you have any questions about that, again, you've got to work on this stuff on your own. You need to be able to code and understand this by going through a couple different things. Your book, the video, look online, see what you can find. And then if you're still struggling on a certain point, you want to talk about that in the discussion forums. But don't say, oh, I'm totally lost in this lab, I don't know what to do, because that's not correct. You should be able to do at least the first loop or some part of this loop. All right, I'm going to stop this video here because I've been going on for 25 minutes. If you have any questions and stuff, obviously use the discussion forums. You can also email me if you're afraid. But I prefer the discussion forum because remember, if you have a question, there's probably somebody else in the class that has that same question. And you should not feel bad about asking questions in the class because, why else would you be taking the class if you didn't know the stuff? So nobody expects you to know all this material. And anybody that would make fun of you is an idiot, so don't worry about idiots. All right, so that's it. Again, when you struggle on a certain part of that, make sure you add it to the discussion forums, and I'll see you.